Authorities are investigating whether sabotage is the cause of leaks in the Nord Stream gas pipelines connecting Russia to Europe. Scientists recorded explosions in the Baltic Sea before detecting 3 simultaneous leaks. Ukraine's accused Russia of carrying out a terror attack. Germany, Denmark and the US all fear it could be sabotage. The Kremlin says it's extremely concerned about the leaks. The pipeline operator says the damage is unprecedented.
Gas bubbles churn the Baltic Sea. This video from Denmark's military shows one area where, 70 metres below sea level, gas is escaping from the Nord Stream pipelines. The undersea pipelines, Nord Stream 1 and 2, link Russia and Germany. 3 red dots mark the places where leaks were detected. Even though the pipelines are not currently delivering Russian gas to Europe, there's still fuel in the pipes. The pipeline's operator reported a drop in pressure, but researchers said they had detected possible explosions in the area where the leaks were observed.
Well, the source of these explosions, as far as we can tell, there's nothing naturally occurring that could explain these. The exact source of them is of course a bit hard for us to speculate about. If these really are explosions, which we find highly likely, then of course they're man-made somehow.
Denmark's Prime Minister would not exclude intentional damage to the pipes.
We cannot rule it out. It is too early to draw conclusions. But this is an extraordinary situation. It is an unusual situation. And there are 3 leaks, even with some distance between them. And that is why it's hard to imagine that what's happening is a coincidence.
But her Polish counterpart alleged that the leaks are sabotage after the leaders toured an energy facility in Poland. The questions over the gas leaks in the Baltic Sea highlight how politicized energy supplies have become following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin says it wants to know what caused the damage too.
No option can be ruled out right now. It's clear that there is damage to the pipeline. We can't exclude any version of events regarding the reason for this before the results of the official investigation.
It's an investigation that will be closely watched by Russia and its European neighbours.
Let's watch it now with Benjamin Schmidt. He's a former European Energy Security Advisor at the US Department of State and joins us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Welcome back to DW, Ben. What do you reckon? Sabotage?
Unfortunately, I think so, Phil. I think that, when we saw this, let's go over the timeline of the last 24 hours. The first Nord Stream 2 trunk line, remember, each Nord Stream pipeline consists of 2 trunk lines carrying half the capacity each. So the first of the 2 Nord Stream 2 trunk lines first had reports of a pressure drop, rapid depressurization, and then visibility of a leak, basically bubbles coming to the surface that was first seen by a Danish F-16 pilot on patrol in the Baltic Sea. So what that said to me immediately was, where did this take place? And this took place southeast of Bornholm. And this is notable because the seabed southeast of Bornholm was for a long time objected to have construction like this going on by many of the Baltic Sea littoral states that took place in the Espoo Convention process that underscores the environmental security risk because of large-scale chemical and conventional munition dumping sites in that region that took place post-World War II. So my thought over last night, maybe it's some sort of physical security incident related to those dumping sites that were long since warned about since the very initiation of Nord Stream 2 project development. However, later yesterday, overnight, the rapid drop of Nord Stream 1 pressure through both of its trunk lines in a location that happens to be northeast of Bornholm, not directly adjacent to the Nord Stream 2 site, really, hits home that it very likely is some sort of man-made incident, and this really raises the stakes in a completely new and different way, but not a way that was completely unforeseen. There are reports that are coming out that the U.S. intelligence agency, the CIA, actually warned Berlin about this potential over the summer. Again, those are reported by Spiegel.
So what man-made but deliberate, and who might benefit from sabotaging two non-operational pipelines?
Well, look, there's any number of reasons that one can think of for the Russian Federation to do this. There was some speculation in Tagesspiegel yesterday that this could be a way for Russia to create what would be considered a false flag operation. In other words, to try to blame this either on Ukraine or Ukrainian partisans, on the West, on the United States, on Poland, on Germany, you name it, NATO, and basically to churn up uncertainty. It also would create uncertainty in the markets as well, but also have that political uncertainty to try to reduce the solidarity that the West has with Ukraine. But at the same time, there's another reason that we can look at, and this is tied back to the Siemens gas turbine sanctions waiver issue that I just testified before Canadian Parliament on just a few weeks ago, which is to say that Russia already is saying that should it need to go in and help repair these pipelines, that it would have to have sanctions lifted, technology sanctions lifted on the pipelines and on Russia for them to be able to do so.
Okay, just looking at the pictures of these churning seas, one's wondering, why is there still pressurized gas in these pipelines when neither is operational?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that for Nord Stream 2, let's look at that first. Nord Stream 2 was undergoing commissioning operations in the late months of 2021 and early 2022. So it had reportedly been filled with what is known as test gas, so distilled methane, and was filled with that gas, the last reporting that I had seen in the press, before Germany took its decision to revoke certification and U.S. took its decision in the hours before Russia's large-scale invasion to finally impose mandatory bipartisan sanctions to stop Nord Stream 2. So what you're seeing from the Nord Stream 2 pipe is very likely that test gas escaping the pipeline from the seabed into the water column, which is a major concern for maritime traffic, because that can actually create unstable buoyancy situations in the water column that could create basically danger at the surface level for vessels. And on Nord Stream 1, yes, although Nord Stream 1 for the past 4 weeks or so has been cut off by a political decision by Moscow, although blamed on the turbine issue over the summer, again, this would be filled with latent gas. So the question is, has Russia turned off any pressure that could be going into the pipes to make this catastrophe even worse? And that's not an answer that I've been able to get yet.
OK, so looking at why this is so important to Europe's fuel security, energy security, winter is coming and we're going to be spending a lot more time indoors. How has the EU done in reducing its dependence on Russian oil and gas?
It's working as fast as it can, Phil. The problem is it's very difficult to build infrastructure to increase that direct one-to-one hydrocarbon swap. So natural gas for natural gas, Russia for swapping out Russia for global market LNG as quickly as possible. There's development of floating storage and regasification units going on across the Baltic coastline, in particular in Germany. But with these, unexpected incidents, you have a situation where Russia is now already threatening to cut off gas through Ukraine and may try to use that to leverage and undermine Western solidarity on not only the technology sanctions that I talked about earlier, but also on Western support for Ukraine, trying to get to a ceasefire for Putin to basically reload and get through all of his recruitment of 300,000 troops and rebuild to take another run at Ukraine. And we can't let that happen.
As ever, a pleasure talking to you, Ben. Always very clear. Former State Department European Energy Security Advisor Benjamin Schmidt. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Phil.
Well, data from the Swedish Seismological network indicates that 2 underwater explosions occurred before the pipeline leaks. The network's director, Björn Lund, talked me through the findings.
Yes, we detected 2 blasts yesterday. one early in the morning between Sunday and Monday at 2 a.m., and then a second one later in the day at 7 p.m. In the evening. And the first blast occurred southeast of the Danish island of Bornholm, whereas the second one, which is slightly larger, and occurred to the northeast of Bornholm, and very close to the location where the Swedish Maritime Administration tells us that these gas leakages, or the gas is leaking out of the pipeline.
And could these explosions have been the result of some naturally occurring seismological event?
No, these are not earthquakes, and they are not underwater landslides. So these are definitely blasts, and we can see that both from evaluating the waveforms. Earthquakes do create slightly different seismic waves than blasts do. In this case, it's in the water, which makes the differences even larger. And finally, we have data on blasts in Swedish waters from the Swedish Navy, where they tell us in advance that they will be blasting. So we are pretty sure that these are not any natural phenomenon, but definitely blasts.
And do you think these blasts are the cause or the effect? Do you think these blasts cause the holes in the pipelines, or perhaps an explosion in the pipeline caused the blast, if you see what I'm driving at there?
Right. Now, we have no data to tell, which is the first and which comes second. We are looking into the data that we have, especially from the second blast, which was slightly larger, and comparing that to the blast data we have from the Swedish Navy blasts to see if we can spot any significant differences, for example, that would tell us that it would be a different source. But so far today, we have not been able to come up with anything that is conclusive. So these looks very much like there's a significant amount of explosives being detonated at the same time.
OK, no doubt in your mind, this was man-made?
That's right.
OK, good talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Björn Lund, Director of the Swedish Seismological Network.
Thank you.
Well, energy analyst Mikhail Krudikin can tell us more about the pipelines themselves. Welcome to DW. What do you think? Was this sabotage?
Yes, definitely it was sabotage, as far as we understand that the explosions and ruptures in the pipelines occurred almost simultaneously. But the problem is to determine who is to blame. If the investigators raise pieces of that pipeline and see that the holes in the pipes have edges pointing downwards inside the pipe, then it was an explosion from outside made by some maybe sabotage group or some underwater equipment which was to explode those pipelines. Or if we see that the explosions occurred inside the pipes, then it was Gazprom. Gazprom could easily send, something which the technicians called a pig. It's a robot that goes inside the pipeline, and it is very easy to, send it in the pipe to a specific point and then have it exploded.
Right.
Because Gazprom is definitely the company that benefits from the explosions.
Explain to us why that is. How, because that would have been one of my next questions. So how would Gazprom benefit from these explosions?
Gazprom has been trying to demonstrate to the outer world that it is decreasing the flow of gas to Europe, because of some technical problems, such as unsafe turbines and turbines requiring repairs. Siemens, the company that maintains the pipelines, proved that it was not true. And now Gazprom needs another pretext.
But why does Gazprom need a pretext? These two pipelines are non-operational. Both have been shut down. So if it is Gazprom, if it is the Russian state, why blow up two pipelines that are not working anyway? They
need some sort of an explanation. they must show that someone was blowing those pipes, and Gazprom is not to blame. Because if Gazprom shows to the world that the decrease or the termination of gas supply was caused by some force majeure, some circumstances that are beyond the will of Gazprom, then Gazprom is not going to pay the penalty for breaking the contracts and failing to deliver the necessary volume of gas.
How difficult would it be then to... could a non-state actor be involved in this?
We do not know yet, but it is a very determined act, either from inside or from outside. We do not know yet. I think investigation will show. And, the problem is that to repair those pipelines requires, many months of work.
Thank you for joining us and explaining that so clearly. Energy analyst Mikhail Krudikin.